I have never been afraid of my job, until the night I realized I might have been talking to someone who wasn't there. I've been teaching 8th grade English for 6 years. I like it more than most people expect. I like the students, the structure, even the predictable cycle of the school year. Nothing about teaching had ever truly unsettled me before. Then came parent-teacher night last November. At our school, those nights run from 5 to 8 p.m. Parents rotate in 15-minute blocks. You sit at your desk, they sit across from you, you talk about their child, and then they leave. Simple. Repetitive. That night, I had 11 scheduled appointments, with a few gaps in between. The first few went exactly as expected. The Petersons were polite and quick. The Millers asked thoughtful questions. A dad named Carl talked non-stop for nearly 25 minutes about his son's untapped brilliance, and I had to gently steer the conversation back twice. Normal. Completely normal. By 6:30, I had a gap. No one scheduled. I decided to use the time to run to the faculty bathroom down the hall. The building felt different by then. Not empty, but quieter in a way that makes every sound stand out. A few classroom lights still on, faint voices echoing somewhere far off, but mostly just stillness. On my way back, I noticed something that immediately felt wrong. The supply closet at the end of the hallway was slightly open. That door is always locked. I mean always. I've been in that wing for 3 years, and I've never once seen it open. The handle doesn't even fully turn from the outside. I've tried it by mistake more times than I can count. But that night, it was open. Just a few inches. Maybe 4. And inside, it was completely dark. As I walked past, I heard something shift inside. I stopped. For a second, I just stood there, staring at that narrow gap in the door. Then, slowly, I reached out and pushed it open with one finger. The door creaked wider. There was a man standing in the back corner. He was tall, maybe in his 50s, wearing a dark jacket. He stood behind a metal shelf, completely still, looking directly at me. Not startled. Not confused. Just watching. There was something about the way he was standing that made my stomach drop. It didn't look like someone caught off guard. It looked like someone who had been standing there for a long time. Waiting. I took a step back without even thinking. My heart started pounding so hard it felt like it didn't belong to me. I asked, "Who are you? What are you doing in here?" He didn't answer right away. He just kept looking at me. Then, after a pause that felt too long, he said calmly, "I'm waiting for my appointment." His voice was flat, controlled. I told him that appointments were held in classrooms, not in supply closets. I asked for his name. He said, "Henderson." That made my stomach twist again. I had a Henderson scheduled. A 7:15 appointment. A single father, Emma Henderson's dad. Emma was one of my better students. Quiet, hard-working. I had never met her father before. I told him his appointment wasn't for another 40 minutes. I suggested he wait in the main hallway or the front lobby, where other parents were. He shook his head slightly. "I prefer to wait here." Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. I stood there in the doorway, trying to process what I was looking at. A man standing alone in a locked supply closet. In the dark. Choosing to stay there. None of it made sense. I told him I was going to get someone from the front office to come speak with him. He replied immediately, sharper this time, "That won't be necessary." That was enough. I turned and walked back toward my classroom, faster than I want to admit. As soon as I got inside, I texted the vice principal. I told her everything. That there was a man in the supply closet, claiming to be a parent, and that something felt very wrong. She responded quickly and said she was on her way. A few minutes later, she arrived with the head of security. We walked together down the hallway. The closet door was closed. Security tried the handle. Locked. Exactly like it always was. He unlocked it and opened the door. Empty. No one inside. No movement. No sound. No sign anyone had been there. I felt my chest tighten. I told them, he was right there. In the back corner. They checked behind the shelves. Nothing. The vice principal looked at me carefully, not accusing, but uncertain. She asked me to describe him again. I did. Every detail I could remember. She wrote it all down. Then we all just stood there for a moment in that quiet hallway, like we were waiting for something else to happen. But nothing did. At 7:15, the Henderson appointment came and went. No one showed up. After the night ended, I went to the front desk and asked to see the sign-in sheet. Every parent who entered the building had signed in. There was no Henderson. Not anywhere on the list. The next morning, I looked up Emma's records. She was real. Everything about her was normal. But under emergency contacts, only her mother was listed. Her father was marked as deceased. He had been dead for 4 years. I sat at my desk staring at that line for a long time. 4 years. I reported everything to the principal. It went to the district. Security pulled the hallway camera footage. I watched it myself. The camera clearly shows the supply closet door. It shows me walking down the hall, stopping, reaching out, pushing the door open, then stepping back and standing there, talking, for nearly 2 minutes. But here's the part that I can't explain. On the footage, the door never opens. Not even an inch. It stays completely closed the entire time. I'm just standing there in the hallway, speaking to a shut, locked door. I've watched that footage 4 times. I still don't understand it. I know what I saw. I know he was there. I know what he said. I wasn't tired. I wasn't distracted. I don't hallucinate. It was a normal Tuesday evening in a well-lit school hallway. And yet, according to the camera, I was alone. The closet was inspected afterward. No hidden doors. No alternate exits. Nothing unusual. It had been locked since the previous school year. Emma still sits in my class. 3rd row. Quiet as ever. A good student. I've never asked her about her father. I don't think I ever will. But sometimes, when I'm walking down that hallway after hours, I notice that supply closet door. And no matter how many times I tell myself it's just a door, I always give it a little extra space. Just in case someone is still inside, waiting. The moment he said it, I knew something was wrong, but I didn't realize how close I was to real danger until I smelled him again in the dark. Back in the summer of 2018, I was 23 and trying to make some money between college semesters. I took a job at a gym in my city. It wasn't a bad place, actually pretty modern, but the location made it feel isolated. The gym sat in the middle of nowhere. On one side, there was an abandoned retirement home that looked like it had been empty for years. On the other, just a gas station and a long stretch of road. The nearest busy stores were miles away. During the day, it felt normal. At night, it felt different. Inside, the gym had 3 levels. The front desk sat near the entrance, with a narrow hallway leading deeper inside. The first floor had the men's locker room, weights, and treadmills. The upper level had the women's locker room and some extra workout areas. One night, I was closing with a coworker. He was 17, still in high school, and honestly, neither of us should have been responsible for the building alone, but that's how management scheduled it. There were still a few people working out as closing time approached. We made the usual announcement: the gym will be closing in 20 minutes. People started leaving one by one. Everything felt normal, until I walked over to one of the last members still there. He was on a treadmill, wearing headphones. I tapped his shoulder lightly. He turned, smiled, and took off one earbud. I said, "Hey, just letting you know we're closing soon." He nodded, still smiling, and asked, "What's your name?" I hesitated for a second, but answered politely, "Emily." That's when his expression changed. It wasn't gradual. It just dropped. Flat. Cold. Then he said, very casually, "Well, Emily, if you don't do something for me right now, I'm not leaving. So you can just deal with it." I froze. My brain didn't even process the words right away. When it did, I felt my stomach twist. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I just nodded slightly and walked away. I found my coworker and told him what happened. He looked just as uncomfortable as I felt. We decided to call our supervisor. I explained everything, expecting her to tell us to kick the guy out or call security. Instead, she said, "Just keep the gym open until he leaves. He won't stay long. You'll get paid extra." That didn't help. Now we were stuck. There were only two of us. Late at night, in a nearly empty building, with a man who had just crossed a line that shouldn't be crossed. We kept cleaning, staying close to each other. Eventually, everyone else left. Except him. He stayed on that treadmill for another 45 minutes. The entire time, I felt like he was aware of us, even when he wasn't looking. Finally, he got off and walked downstairs. I was at the front desk when he approached. He smiled again, like nothing had happened. "Hey," he said. "Sorry about earlier. I don't like being told what to do." I forced a small nod. He leaned on the counter, too comfortable. Then he asked for my number. I immediately lied. "I have a boyfriend. He's picking me up." He chuckled, then said something that made my chest tighten. "If I wanted to take you, I could. You'd be mine." I didn't move. I didn't speak. He kept talking. He said he had hurt someone before, that he knew what it was like, that he didn't regret it. He said he liked me, that he was going to watch over me. I felt completely frozen, like my body had stopped responding. Then suddenly, just as casually as he started, he said, "Good night," and walked out. I watched him leave through the front door. I remember thinking, it's over. But it wasn't. We finished closing tasks. My coworker left first, since he lived closer. That left me alone. That's where I made the mistake. I didn't lock the front door right away. I told myself it was fine, that he was gone. About 30 minutes later, I turned off the lights and headed toward the hallway to leave. The gym was dark now. Quiet. Too quiet. As I walked toward the front desk area, I noticed something. A shape. Someone crouched behind the desk. At first, I thought it was my coworker. I called his name. No response. I stepped a little closer. Then I smelled it. Sweat. Strong. Sour. Familiar. My entire body went cold. It was him. He hadn't left. He had come back and hidden. I didn't wait. I didn't say anything else. I slowly backed away, then turned and hurried upstairs as quietly as I could. Once I reached the women's locker room, I locked myself in the bathroom. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I texted my coworker. "Are you still here?" He replied, "No, I left." "Why?" I typed back. "He's still here." His response came instantly, "Call the police. Now." So I did. I tried to stay quiet, explaining everything in a whisper. Then, from outside the bathroom, I heard footsteps, slow, heavy, moving through the locker room. Then his voice, calling my name, "Emily." I covered my mouth to stop myself from making a sound. He kept walking, opening lockers, moving things. Then closer. "Emily, I know you're here." I don't know how long I sat there. It felt like forever. Every second stretched out, filled with this constant fear that the door would suddenly open, that he would find me. At one point, he stopped moving. Everything went silent. That was the worst part, because I didn't know where he was, or if he was right outside the door. I stayed completely still. Finally, after what felt like at least 20 minutes, I heard distant voices. Then footsteps. Different ones. The police. They found him still inside the building. He didn't resist. Later, I learned something that made everything worse. He wasn't lying. He had a violent past. He had seriously hurt someone before. That night could have gone very differently. The next day, I quit. I didn't even finish my full notice. I never went back to working late shifts again. And even now, if I ever get the feeling that someone is watching me, I don't ignore it anymore. I thought I was finally going to find the rare bird I'd been searching for, but instead, I found something no one should ever see. I was about 12 years old when I got really into bird watching. Nothing serious. Just a kid with a cheap pair of binoculars, a notebook, and a growing obsession with spotting new birds. Every weekend, I'd head out around my neighborhood. It was one of those suburban areas that slowly fades into wild land. Patches of woods, brush, small creeks, and empty lots. There were a few ponds nearby, and a winding road that cut through a wooded area. It was the kind of place where you'd see everything from ducks to hawks if you were patient enough. I even made a list of birds I wanted to find, printing pictures from the library and checking them off one by one. But there was one bird I couldn't find. The black vulture. They were rare in my area. We had plenty of turkey vultures, which looked similar from a distance, but black vultures were harder to spot. Smaller, darker, more aggressive. I became obsessed with finding one. One weekend, I decided I was finally going to do it. I spent the entire day searching, climbing over fences, walking through brush, following the creek. I knew vultures were often found near roadkill, so I focused on a quiet, two-lane road that ran alongside the woods. It was a strange road. Trees grew so thick on both sides that in some places, their branches met overhead, forming a tunnel. Even during the day, parts of it felt dim and enclosed. Animals would often run across it without warning. Deer, raccoons. Sometimes you'd find them later, lying by the side of the road. That's where vultures would gather. I walked that road for hours. I saw crows picking at something small. A few ducks in the creek. But nothing I was looking for. Still, I didn't want to give up. The sun was starting to lower, but there was still some light left. I decided to head toward a small park at the end of the road, then turn back. As I walked under one of those tree tunnels, I suddenly saw it. A large bird circling above. My heart jumped. The shape was right. The size was right. It had to be a vulture. I couldn't tell which kind from that distance, but I didn't care. I started following it, keeping my eyes locked on the sky. Slowly, it circled lower, then lower, until finally, it disappeared behind the trees near the park. I quickened my pace, trying to stay quiet. When I reached the edge of the park, I slowed down and crouched, moving carefully through the grass. That's when I heard it. Harsh bird calls. Sharp, aggressive. More than one. I felt a surge of excitement. Black vultures are known to be more aggressive than turkey vultures. If there were multiple birds making that kind of noise, this could be it. I moved closer. Then I noticed something else. The smell. It hit me before I fully registered it. At first, it was faint. But the closer I got, the stronger it became. It wasn't just bad. It was wrong. I had smelled roadkill before. It was unpleasant, sure, but this was different. Sharper. Heavier. Like metal mixed with something rotten. I hesitated for a second. Then I raised my binoculars. At first, my brain tried to make sense of what I was seeing. Dark shapes moving. Feathers. A large form on the ground. And then it clicked. It wasn't an animal. It was a person. A woman. She was lying in the middle of the clearing. Not moving. Not breathing. The birds were on her. I froze. I couldn't look away. My mind kept trying to reject it, like if I just stared long enough, it would turn into something else. Something normal. But it didn't. Her skin looked pale, almost gray in the fading light. Her hair was light-colored, spread out unevenly around her head. The birds were focused on certain places. I won't describe it in detail, but it was enough to make my stomach twist. I remember feeling like I couldn't breathe, like my body had stopped working. I don't know how long I stood there. Time didn't feel real anymore. Then a thought hit me, hard. What if someone did this, and they're still nearby? That snapped me out of it. I slowly started backing away. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. For some reason, I felt like if I looked away, something would be behind me. So I just kept stepping backward, eyes locked on the clearing. The birds shifted slightly but didn't leave. The light was fading fast. Then suddenly, headlights. At the top of the hill. A car. The beams cut across the clearing for just a second. I flinched and dropped lower. The car stopped abruptly. I heard tires skid slightly on gravel. Then, just as quickly, it turned and sped away in the opposite direction. That was it. That was the moment everything inside me broke. I turned and ran. I didn't care about noise anymore. I crashed through the brush, branches scraping my arms, catching my clothes. I ran as fast as I could. I don't even remember the full path I took. I just knew I had to get home. At some point, I realized I had lost control of my body in fear. I didn't stop. I didn't slow down. I didn't look back. When I finally reached my neighborhood, I avoided the road, cutting through backyards, staying out of sight of passing cars. I didn't trust anything anymore. I got home, locked every door, checked them again, then again. I took a quick shower, even though my hands were shaking the entire time. I didn't call anyone. I didn't tell anyone. I was scared. Scared I'd get in trouble for being out there. Scared no one would believe me. Scared that somehow it would come back to me. I stayed in my room all night, alone. My mom didn't get home until late. The next morning, I finally told her. We called the police. But when they went out there, the body had already been found. Someone else had reported it. They took my statement, asked a few questions. Then that was it. I never heard anything back. No updates. No news. Nothing. I tried to look it up later. Search for any report, any article. I couldn't find anything. It was like it never happened. After that, I stopped birdwatching. Completely. Even now, years later, I can still picture it perfectly. The clearing, the birds, the silence, and sometimes, I still think about that car. The way it stopped, the way it left. And I can't help but wonder, if I had gotten there just a few minutes earlier, would I have seen who did it?